Good afternoon or good evening. Hi, I'm Lisa Ackberry, your hair doctor, and I'm uber excited about this day because this is the day the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. So, hallelujah. Thank you, God, for allowing me the opportunity to just be here and allowing me the opportunity to serve you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today I'm going to be your hair doctor. And I'm going to take about 15 minutes and I'm going to answer some of my questions. So, right below, make sure that you leave your questions because the next week I will answer those or in a few days. So, that's going to be important. I'm a trichologist. I'm not a medical doctor. I am a trichologist, board certified trichologist, and I can help you with your hair and scalp problems. A trichologist treats hair, its disorders, its diseases, and its connection to the scalp. And I also work with other practitioners, other medical doctors. And those medical doctors are endocrinologists, dermatologists, primary care physicians. I will work with those doctors, and those are the ones I generally work with to help connect you with the answer to your hair and scalp problems. So, with that being said, I'm going to get right to the questions. The first question is from Nicole, and Nicole says, "Hello, I was wondering if it's a possibility that is it possible to straighten your hair without heat damage." And then she wanted to know, she says she blow dries her hair using a heat protectant, but her hair is not as thick as it normally is. And then she says, but when she shampoos, she still has her curl pattern. So she wanted to know, was her hair damaging? What was happening? And then she mentioned the kind of blow dryer she used. And then she mentioned that she used some oil with that. Now she says she doesn't flat iron her hair, but she uses a blow dryer. And then she wanted to know if it's possible to be semi-weakened. Is it possible? So first let's talk about the process of heat damage. When you use the heated tool on your hair, if the temperature is higher than your hair can tolerate, then what happens, you begin to develop a heat damage. Your strand will begin to become smaller and smaller. Microscopically viewed, what we'll see is that indentions in the actual hair shaft. We'll see the strand areas of the hair shaft or the entire hair shaft become smaller and smaller and smaller. So what happens, you will have the cuticle being lost until you burn into the cortical fiber, and then if you burn into the cortical fiber, the hair will become permanently straightened as if you have a relaxer, because the process of heat having overprocessed hair is either going to come through heat heat damage or through chemical damage. Now, the reason why you can still see your curl pattern is because you're using a blow dryer, and what happens when you use a blow dryer from wet to dry on your hair, even with a heat protectant, if it's hotter than the hair can tolerate, then you still begin to have this process of damage. You will swell the hair. It's called bubble hair. That's how it's termed, because microscopically viewed, you'll see the swelling of the hair shaft. As the hair shaft peels, then you will have that thinning, and then you'll get into the cortical fibers, and then you will actually lose your curl pattern. But initially, it's just basically swelling the shaft. The cortical fibers become enlarged because it's literally boiling that cortex inside. Now, that seems to be a strange term, but what happens, your hair, while it's wet, and you take the heat and you apply it to that hair shaft, the hair cortex becomes swollen or becomes enlarged, and it's basically boiling. That as that water temperature rises, the water almost goes to a boiling point. So what happens, the hair cortex will become exposed, the layers will peel off, and then the strand will become thinner. Because it's in the cortical fibers, in the area of the cortical fibers, then your hair curl pattern will become less and less and less. So eventually the hair will straighten out. So yes, this is the process. The hair strand, as the cuticle layers will peel off, your hair will become thinner. So that's why you feel a thinner hair shaft, but you haven't lost the curl yet. If you continue, then you will lose the curl. Now, what's the blow dryer that you use? It doesn't matter. It's about the temperature. If you have fine hair, you have to be careful to stay in a range under 300. So around 150, 200, somewhere maybe 250, depending on the condition of your hair. When you're in medium hair, you have medium textured hair, then you want to stay around the 300 mark, and that's it. Maybe 350. When you have coarse hair, you can move over into the 350, 400, maybe even 425. It all depends on the condition of your hair. So with the blow dryer, you're raising that temperature up pretty high. So you want to make sure you monitor that temperature. So it doesn't matter the blow dryer, it depends on the temperature. Okay, and with that being said, she also wanted to know if it was semi-damaged. Well, then yes, it could be. It's headed toward that straightening process where you lose your curl pattern. So be careful. Okay, I hope that's helped. It's seeing the microscopic view would help as well, but I'm hoping that helped. I'm going to go back and listen to my answer just to make sure I was really clear on that. Okay, now the next question said, why are my ends always dry when I shampoo my ends, or they're even rougher? And I see little tiny curls in the tub when I shampoo my hair. What is this? I am a year and 9 months natural. Woohoo! Tell me how to fix this problem, please. It seemed like it is stunting my growth. Well, let me just tell you, your growth is not stunted. Your hair is growing. Unless you have baldness, your hair is growing. You're just not able to obtain length when you lose those. You have those little balls on the ends falling off. Let me tell you what's happening. Your ends are the oldest portion of the hair. So in one of my books, Every Woman's Guide to Beautiful Hair, I have a chapter or a couple of paragraphs that says to trim or not to trim. That is the question. Well, you have to decide whether you're going to treat these ends or you will need to trim them away. Now, treating them, you haven't asked about trimming them, I don't think. No, you wanted to know why they're so dry. So let's address that. If you treat your ends, you won't have to trim, and the reason why they're dry is because they're not getting a balance of what they need. Now, your ends are the oldest hair, so they are going to need the product is going to dissipate quickly. They'll be split and open because of wear and tear. So what you want to do when you approach your hair, let's just take one little curl in the front of my head. And it's really hard to keep these curls up there because you see how long that is, but I try to, so I can wear my little fake faux hawk. It's getting harder to do this. Okay, stay focused, Lisa, stay focused. Okay, so let's just take one section. When you apply product to your ends, I think I got it, you can see, you want to take your forefinger and thumb, apply your leave-in conditioner. I recommend our hair vitamin, as you know. You want to put that on as blotting it. Then you want to smooth straight down. Then you want to take your moisturizer, blot, 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 smooth straight down. That's on a daily basis. Now, when you are shampooing and conditioning, you want to condition your hair doing the same thing. Now, you say, well, I'm going to have to do one little section at a time. No, you're going to take large sections. So I could take this whole section, and I could do the same thing with fingers and thumb, and I would smooth down, blot it down, and then I would smooth. And I would just layer until I got a nice ribbon. Then I would take my hand and I would do this until I got a nice ribbon smooth. So then I know I've got my true, isn't our natural hair wonderful how it just kind of bounces back? But I've got a curl that really wants to stick out right here because it's just too long to be up there. But I'm going to tuck it back in there. Or maybe I'll leave it. I don't know. We'll decide. We'll see what it does. Okay, get back in there. Because I'm trying to wear my faux hawk. I call it a faux hawk, but someone's faux hawk. I know it's faux hawk, but I like the word faux hawk. I think you can call it either one. Okay, so if you do that and your ends daily, you're not going to have any problems. And be careful with your detangling, because when you detangle, that's problematic. And I have a product called Hydrating Detangling Souffle that you could use and get and prevent those tangles. But when you detangle, you're pulling and tearing at your ends, which makes them drier. That's because there's less elasticity and the porosity is poor on the ends. Because as I said, it's the oldest hair on your head, and that will be a problem with your ends becoming dehydrated because anything you put on your ends is going to try and dissipate. But if you deep condition your hair and you hydrate your hair every day, your cuticle layers will become more compact around the cortical fibers and you'll hold your moisture longer. So remember that one, okay? Let's see if we can get a couple more in. And one person, just this next question is, can you please compare the benefits of deep conditioning using a hooded dryer with a plastic cap versus a hair steamer without a plastic cap? Thank you. Okay, the difference in deep conditioning is with the hooded dryer is the deep conditioning with the plastic cap and hooded dryer gives you that indirect heat. It's dry heat, and basically it's going to raise the temperature of your hair shaft, which you want. In order to get optimum penetration of your conditioner, you want to have a protein and a moisture, and you want to have one that has a molecular weight that's small enough to deep penetrate. Then you want to raise the temperature at least 60 degrees, and that's usually on medium setting. Once you do that, then you're going to get the optimum penetration with that dry heat. Going on the plastic cap is going to raise the temperature of your hair. If you use a steamer, the steamer is basically going to cause your hair to detox. It's going to open up the pores of the hair and it's going to draw out any of the buildup. It's going to help with that. I use that in part of my treatments in my clinic, and then it's going to open up the pores of the scalp. But what it does, it makes you sweat. So it gives you waste and salt on the scalp and hair, so it's not as good. So the best way to do is a hooded dryer to raise the temperature and not use steam to make you sweat. All right, and even with a hooded dryer, you need to drink some cool water so that your body temperature doesn't rise and you don't sweat. Let's stay on medium setting. Okay, it said I wanted to ask you how it is that a gray hair can grow out natural and then it turns around and it starts to grow back. It grows out gray and then it turns around and starts to grow back black again. Well, or dark again. Well, gray hair is an absence of the color-forming pigments found in the cortical fibers. I was looking at my time and said, you're going to run out of time, but I'm not. I'm going to get this question in. It's an absence of color-forming pigment found in the cortical fibers. What happens when you lose those, then your hair turns white. The illusion is gray because of the dark and the light hairs together. But if your body starts producing that as it produces its hair, then you will have your hair turn dark again. Now, it all happens in your body systems. There's no real answer for why it happens, but everything that relates, and it just confirms, everything that relates to your body and what's happening with your body, your hair and skin can be affected by that. So, some will say there's certain supplements you can take. There's many studies on this, but there's no real answer. But it is an absence of your color-forming pigments that are found in your cortical fibers in your developmental stage of your hair. When that changes, the presence of those pigments are there, then that hair will be dark again. Trauma, all kinds of things could cause this. Poor diets, stress. It's just, I could give you an example. I had a patient who lost her daughter. Tragic. I can't even imagine. And her entire head turned white over a few months. And then as the years went on, some of the white hair started to go away and it got dark again. So her situation was clearly from a very tragic situation within her that caused her body system, so something within, to be thrown off. I'm not sure. That's something that's worth researching, and I may just do something with that later on. Okay, well, we're out of time, but I'm Lisa Ackberry, your hair doctor, and please make sure you put your questions below and I'll answer them for you next time on Ask the Hair Doctor. To God be the glory in Jesus.